Now let's turn our attention to the UK, because Britain says it will soon submit formal proposals for a new Brexit deal that would necessarily include some kind of customs checks on the island of Ireland. The government, however, says there won't be any physical infrastructure at the Irish border and that more details will be coming in a matter of days. Well, Prime Minister Boris Johnson told the BBC this morning that new plans would seek to remove the controversial Irish backstop from the EU withdrawal agreement. That's the part of the deal, stating that the UK will remain in a customs union with the EU unless and until solutions are found to avoid a hard Irish border after Brexit. Well, for more on this, we can talk to our UK correspondent Vincent McAvenny. He's in Manchester for us following the annual conference of Boris Johnson's Conservative Party. Vincent, good to see you there. Well, the media are certainly making much of this, as we are. Is this creating or causing a buzz amongst delegates there?
Good afternoon, Tokes. Well, these proposals that are put forward in this paper are nothing official. The Prime Minister has been out this morning on the airwaves talking about them, but he won't go into detail because he's got his big speech here tomorrow in which he might present the proposals that he's going to take to Brussels. So at the moment, it's all being downplayed here. He said the reality is there will need to be customs checks on the island of Ireland after the EU leaves. But his Northern Irish Secretary, who he has got a bit of a difficult relationship with, Julian Smith, has said, I don't know where these papers have come from. We can't have customs facilities in the places mentioned in the reports. And he said 5 or 10 miles from the border, that is an issue. I'm not clear on that. So some confusion here amongst government members. The people attending this conference, the banners everywhere saying get Brexit done. That's the mantra they're repeating. But there are still no firm proposals on the situation in Northern Ireland, a part of the United Kingdom that voted Remain overwhelmingly. It's an incredibly complex issue which many people just don't seem to grasp. It's over 300 miles long. There's over 200 crossing points, including waterways. This idea that you might pull back from the borders themselves and put installations in the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland, well, those would likely become targets too. So people here are a little bit confused about this idea about what the difference would really be.
Vincent, in normal times, a Prime Minister who's been beaten up, as Boris Johnson has been over the last few weeks, would be out of a job, perhaps holding his P45. Are delegates and people you've spoken to, their Conservative Party members, united behind the Prime Minister right now?
Well, there definitely is an atmosphere at this party that they've got the right man in the job, finally. You go to the gift shop, which is just over here. They're selling lots of Boris merchandise. Anytime he walks through the hall here, there's lots of people trying to grab a selfie with him. But there is some disquiet about the way that he has gone about his strategy in the past couple of weeks, the language he has used. And I think the real test will be his speech tomorrow afternoon to close this conference. Because don't forget, this is a man that they've wanted to be Prime Minister in parts of this party for many years, but he's lost every vote so far in Parliament. He's lost the majority they had. He's lost his brother from government. He's lost the leader in Scotland, Ruth Davidson, who's incredibly popular. So the strategy, they think, many people here say, has been wrong, but they still back Boris. But the real test will be that conference speech, because Boris Johnson normally, he can do the bombast. He likes playing to an audience that's friendly to him. But his speeches in recent weeks, going back to Yorkshire, that speech when in the front of the police officers, that was a really strange speech. He didn't really deliver it. It was kind of all over the place. His other public utterings recently have been very tricky. So we'll see whether he can win over the party faithful, because this is the party that he needs to get out on the doorstep rapidly. They thought they'd be in a general election right now. They hope they will be in a couple of weeks' time, and they think that he is their best weapon. But he certainly is a controversial figure, and he's entered this conference in the last few days with more questions about his conduct over the past few years with women, and I think that might be something that could increasingly do him damage. But for now, they think he's their best hope.
Vincent McAvenny there with the latest from the Conservative Party conference in Manchester. Thank you. Now for the view from Ireland, our reporter Ken Murray joins me now from County Meath, the birthplace of Pierce Brosnan. Ken, good to see you there. Well, we've waited so long for news from the British government. Is that causing excitement there in Ireland? Because after all, we've had Simon Coveney dismissing these ideas as a non-starter.
That's right, Takunbo. A very negative reaction in Ireland this morning to a proposal that the British government might construct customs checkpoints 10 miles inside the Irish border and 10 miles north of the Irish border on the British side. Simon Coveney said this morning, no border, no paper, meaning that without a proper proposal, this idea that was floated yesterday is simply not going to happen. The leader of Sinn Féin, Mary Lou MacDonald, was out early this morning and completely dismissed this idea. The idea that gathering a bit of currency on radio, this the British government engaging in some sort of a trick by issuing this document to RTE, the state broadcaster here, to fly a kite. In other words, to test public reaction. If the political reaction was anyway optimistic or positive, they might say, yes, we could run with this. But the reaction has been so negative. Julian Smith, the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland, has effectively said it's not going to happen. Now, any plan to, if you like, impose customs points, which disappeared in 1993 under the Maastricht Treaty, the whole creation of the European has created a fear that there might be a possible return to violence. I've been to Northern Ireland in the last few days, and I've spoken to a number of people who have expressed their concerns that any hard border just might bring about a possible return to terrorism.
Scenes like this scarred Northern Ireland, where over 3,500 people were killed between 1969 and 1994. When power sharing was finally agreed, everybody hoped that the bad old days of terror were finally over. Eugene Reevy's three brothers were killed by British loyalists in 1976. He's from South Armagh, and for now, fears of a return to violence in Northern Ireland in a no-deal scenario are for the moment speculation.
When I'm hearing that mainstream republicanism, the old provisional IRA, will not be going back to war. But we have the dissidents on other groups who feed off these spectaculars, and there is no doubt that they will attack any type of installation along that border.
Despite the recent killing of journalist Lyra McKee by dissident Irish Republicans, one seasoned observer of the war in Northern Ireland believes that any return to violence is highly unlikely.
I think the feelings and the sentiments are so strong on both sides of the border that we're not necessarily having to anticipate the behaviour of dissident Republicans or any shades of republicanism.
Observers in the British Protestant community believe any return to violence is likely to be disorganised and sporadic.
Dissident Republicans are keen to seize on any opportunity to justify violence, anything that might have any wider support within the community, maybe attacking any sort of infrastructure at the border.
On the streets of Belfast, there is optimism that Northern Ireland's darkest days are behind it.
I would say certainly a hard border is on the line, and that's coming through in the last couple of days' news.
I remember the days of the 70s and 80s and whatever, and you wouldn't want to go back there, would you?
I'm concerned about the Ireland and Northern Ireland with a hard border coming on, and I hope to God that there's no armed struggle or any troubles coming back.
So as you can see, there's a lot of concern in Northern Ireland that if customs checkpoints are reconstructed on the border between Northern Ireland, which is under British rule, and the Republic of Ireland, which is a separate jurisdiction, there are fears amongst the public that there could be a return to violence by dissident terrorists who are opposed to any, exit of Britain from the European Union that might, implicate the Republic of Ireland and a possible going back to the bad old days. So lots for the British government, the European Commission and the Irish government to work out in the coming weeks. Cunbo?